Hello and very dear students, audience, and my colleagues and friends. This is once again Professor Dr. Zia Ahmed. In order to prepare a video on the last third section of Charles Dickens' novel, A Tale of Two Cities, we are once again here. And let me remind all my people here that I have already recorded multiple videos on the introduction to Charles Dickens and then introduction to this novel. And after that, some of the videos on the textual analysis have also been introduced already. Now, this one is on the last section, but here also, 5 chapters have already been covered in the last video. So, remaining 10 chapters will be dealt with here. And out of these remaining 10 chapters, chapter number 6 to 10 are merely the repetition of introductions of the characters and how they fall a victim to the arrangements made by the French people, especially by Mrs. Defarge, and the tribunal which they have established, and the jail system which they have established, and the spy system which was going on. And how do Charles Darnay and after that his friend enter into France, and ultimately Charles Darnay, who's the husband of Lucy, reaches the jail. The matter of denunciation is there. Now, the matter of denunciation is a kind of decision made by the tribunal established by the different patriarchs or citizens of the French. They just declare some person to be a denounced person, and when somebody is denounced, that person is going to meet the fate of revenge or the fate of being punished. And especially the elite class people or the rich people, they are the victims of this kind of thing. And so in that way, number of issues happen, because of which Charles Darnay is entrapped into the jail. And when he is trapped there, at that time, number of other characters are repeated and introduced, and in detail they are mentioned to us. The most important characters in this part also are Lucy Manet and Dr. Manet. And Charles Darnay, of course, he's the most important character, and alongside that, many other minor characters are also present, like this is Mrs. Pross, who is basically the nanny or maidservant of Lucy Manet, but she is so much different from other people. She is powerful, strong, and so the story is going to end on her. And how does she play a very big role in saving Mr. Charles Darnay or Lucy Manet, and ultimately her bravery and courage has also been talked about. So in that way, we shall have number of interesting things in that. But among these interesting things, one of the interesting things is that there is a friend of Charles Darnay who is the lover of Lucy Manet as well. I'm not disclosing his name for the sake of interest. That person also travels to France from England, and he meets Lucy because he's a lover of Lucy, never succeeded in that, and he finds out the whole situation and feels that how much Lucy is upset, and he's the very one person who is ready to give the sacrifice of his life. So he prepares a plan, and ultimately the rescue of Darnay, Charles Darnay, the husband of Lucy, is possible only because of his services, his skills, and ultimately his sacrifice of life for the sake of Lucy. So here is not only a political type of discussion, but also a romantic discussion that will be discussed with two references. One, how much Lucy is attached to Charles Darnay, and how much she is attached to her lover, and how much that lover is ready to sacrifice the whole life for the sake of his beloved. So in that way, these are some of the interesting aspects that we shall be taking. The chapter from 6 to 10 are just to be skipped by us people. We will be just trying to highlight that who is introduced in this type of text and who is not. For example, this is chapter 6, and it has been titled as Triumph. That this triumph may be on the part of the people who are trying to run the French country, or it may be on the part of the people who are going away and escaping these people also. So in that way, in both ways, it will be considered. Chapter will be important in this regard. So Charles Darnay has been called in the jail. He's been put in the jail, and there his father-in-law, Dr. Manet, is making different efforts in order to save him. He is using his influence upon the people. He is using his influence on Mr. Defarge as well, and he is using his influence on the jury so that somehow or the other he may be able to save his son-in-law, or to make his daughter as happy as possible. So in that way, doctor is making different entreaties, and these entreaties are helping him to get some kind of thing. And ultimately, he succeeds in saving his son-in-law for some time, and he comes home, and so in that way, the very starting sentence of chapter 7 is that I have saved him. He was saved, of course, but the knock on the door means that once again he will be called by the people who are running the country under the orders of Mrs. Defarge, and he will be once again taken. And as a result, everything which is going on happy, that turns into sadness, because the people the we can say the citizens, the favorite or the very faithful type of citizens, will be there in order to carry this person Charles Darnay to jail once again. So some of the names may be noted, that here is Mr. Cruncher, the brother, supposedly the brother of Mrs. Pross, and Jerry is there, and all these characters are being repeated. Mrs. Pross's history is being talked about, that we don't need to discuss here. Dr. Manet's role in the past, and Dr. Manet, how he has been behaving at that time when France was under the rule of the elite people, how it has been happening, all these things continue to be talked about. And in that way, a lot of things happen, because of which, once again, we find that Dr. Manet is in trouble. Because his son-in-law is being driven back to the jail, and there are the people who are happy or who are sad on this. Definitely, we need to take the case of the sad people first of all. That it is this is Lucy who has become extraordinarily sad, and her daughter has become sad, and ultimately this is Dr. Manet himself who is becoming not only sad but also upset, because it is not possible for him to save his son-in-law, and because of this disturbance, because of this problem he is facing, he becomes mad once again. A type of madness descends on him once again. And I think my viewers do remember that in one of the chapters we discussed, as the shoemaker, the chapter was that it's Dr. Manet. Because of his mental condition, he continued to perform some shoemaking activity, and he thought himself to be a shoemaker instead of a doctor. Once again, he begins to feel like that. He requests the people for his instruments, which make him shoemaker, and he thinks that he is the shoemaker right now. But with the passage of time, new things happen, and the game is made with the help of Sydney Carton, the name that I tried to hide from you people in the beginning. It is Sydney Carton, the lover of Lucy Manet. He is making a game now, and is trying to make a game in order to get maximum information about Charles Darnay, and to try to save him as well for the sake of his beloved Lucy Manet. So he's there making every effort. He's there making Lucy very much happy as well, because Lucy is the person who went to see her husband for the last time on the request of this whole Dr. Maynard. And when she was allowed to see him at that time, it happened that Dr. Maynard was unable to save the son-in-law, and Lucy also fell unconscious. And because of this unconsciousness, it happened that Charles Darnay was sad, of course, and they said goodbye to each other. But this was Sidney Carton who became even sadder, and he made a vow that he will be saving the life of Charles Darwin, and ultimately it would be possible for him to give happiness of life to his beloved. So on this plan, he makes a game, and this way the chapter is dedicated to his plans and the efforts of Dr. Manet. And when he returns unsuccessful, but it's not Sidney Carton who returns unsuccessful, it is Dr. Manet who returns unsuccessful. So with these things, the chapters continue, and we need to take care of the chapter 11 here. First of all, this chapter is again talking something about the judges, and it's talking about the good citizens. It's talking about the farewell which had taken place between the two people. For example, the lines which are right now visible, if we read them, we can find the whole gist here. It says that, farewell, dear darling of my soul, my parting blessing on my love. We shall meet again where the weary are at rest. They were her husband's words as he held her to his bosom. I can hear Charles, dear Charles, I am supported from above. Don't suffer for me. A part blessing for our child. I send it to her by you. I kiss her by you. I say farewell to her by you. So that is the parting moment when ultimately it has been believed that Charles Darnay will be put to death. And this is the wife of Charles Darnay, Lucy Manet. She is meeting her husband for the last time and falling unconscious as well. She is taken away by Sidney Carton and other people, and she's brought back into the house, and there she lay unconscious for a very long time. And there is the now support of the daughter of Charles Darnay and Lucy Manet also taken here, because the centermost part of the paragraph If we look at that, we can feel that it is Miss Pross who's very much upset, and the daughter of Lucy Manet is also very upset, and she goes forward and addresses to Sidney Carton by saying, now that you have come, I think you will do something to help Mama, something to save Papa, or look at her, dear Carton. Can you, of all the people who love her, bear to see her so? So in that way, another appeal comes from the daughter of Lucy Maynard for Sidney Carton. And when Sidney Carton hears this appeal, he is even more upset and is able to make his belief firm that he has to save Charles Darnay at every cost. So he bent over the child and laid her blooming cheek against his face. He put her gently from him and looked at her unconscious mother, and ultimately kissed the face of the mother and had a vow by saying, "A life you love." So he's going to save the life which he loved, or he's going to sacrifice himself for the life which he possibly loved. So, in that way, this is the kind of lover's romantic situation where he was preparing himself in order to save Charles Darnay. This is chapter 10, 12 now. The similar story will continue with this, with the possibility that there is a problem which is going on with reference to Defarge and Mrs. Defarge. Mrs. Defarge is again and again trying to declare that this Defarge, her husband, is not that very powerful person and powerful mind, so she has to take care of all the decisions about the people, especially the people of Charles Darnay and his wife. So in that way, Defarges have become certainly very much important, and they are declaring everyone, whomever they like, to be the denounced person, and then so he is put to jail at any moment. And not only in the jail, but also there could be some trouble for that person. So the discussion keeps on, the kind of discussion that I have referred to in these lines. This discussion continues, and ultimately some decisions are to be made. For example, here, I communicate to him that secret. I smite this bosom with these two hands as I smite it now, and I tell him, Defarge, I was brought up among the fishermen of seashore, and that peasant family so injured by the two Avamont brothers, so as that Bastille paper describes, is my family. Defarge, that sister of mortally wounded boy upon the ground, was my sister. That husband was my sister's husband. That unborn child was the child. That brother was my brother. That father was my father. Those dead are my dead. And that summons to answer for those things descends to me. Ask him, is that so? So here is the speech from Mrs. Defarge. And that Madame Defarge is telling her past, and possibly in her past she suffered so much. Her sister, her sister's husband, the children of her sister and her father, all were killed by the rich people, by the royal people, by the elite class, and ultimately she was in grief, and she possibly had lived through that grief, and now she was there to take revenge of all these things. So in that way, she's the figure of vengeance, she's the figure of revenge from all type of people who are rich and elite in that way. So therefore her kind of anger is justified through this paragraph, that she is such a woman that she wants to have revenge on every person whom she thinks to be powerful and whom she thinks responsible for the destruction of her family. So in that way, a kind of justification has been thought by the writer, but also the character, the furiousness of that character, the angry nature of that character, Mrs. Defarge or Madame Defarge, that also been highlighted through these paragraphs. So continuing further, how does she use her anger, and how does she decide about the using of her anger? That all these things have been talked about in the remaining of the chapter, and the readers can go through that. We don't need to stop for every paragraph and see how has she decided and what is going to happen. Here is chapter 13, which is actually titled as 52, a number, and this 52 comes for the number of prisoners which will be put to death. So it is the time when 52 people will be put to death, and 52th person is going to be Charles Darnay, and he will be brought forward so that he can be killed through the decree associated or enunciated or given by the kind of people who are becoming jury, who are good citizens, and they are giving their decisions in order to do that. But meanwhile, when Charles Darnay is there inside the jail, he is thinking that how he will be going to his sacrifice, or he will be managing things, and what kind of feelings he will be having. All these things are in his mind, but certainly he is to feel, or some change is to come into him. He is like Dr. Faustus, waiting in his chamber. First of all, as it is described in this paragraph, that 9 gone forever, 10 gone forever, 11 gone forever, 12 coming on to pass away. So this is the last hour. He's counting. After the last hour is passed, he will be brought out, and he will be brought to the machine where the killing is taking place. He will be taken there. So Charles Darnay is waiting in his cell for the final arrival of moment, and ultimately the moment is going to come. Just 1 hour is left. But during this 1 hour, something happens, and that is here in this paragraph. The door was quickly opened and closed, and there stood before him face to face, quite intent upon him, with the light of a smile on his features and caution finger on his lips, Sidney Carton. So this is Sidney Carton, who has reached in his chamber of prison, and who is there just resembling him, and who is there to offer him his dressing. He's there to make his hair in the same style, and he's there to give him his own shoes. And in that way, he's going to change Charles Darnay into Sidney Carton, and he will himself become Charles Darnay, so that nobody will be able to recognize. But in order to do so, he has to hit Charles Darnay, and he has to make him just like a unconscious person, so that he will be conveyed out. And ultimately, because of this situation, Carton will be put to death, and the papers of Carton with which he could move from France to England will be given to Charles Darnay, and that way it will be possible for him. Now the readers can feel very upset on that, and they can think about this thing, how it is possible that a man may resemble, and how this disguise may be working in order to save the life of Charles Darnay, and allowing Sidney Carton to help the woman whom he loved very much. And that was the situation because both of these people resembled very much with each other. They were of the same age, and also in the novel, in the past time, the confusion resulted in the escape of both the heroes, Charles Darnay and Sidney Carton. The same confusion is now helping. So in that way, it's a type of Shakespearean style where the disguise is used in order to convey a specific type of meaning. So this thing is happening, and that we need to understand that it will be possible perhaps for Sidney Carton to appear like Charles Darnay, and it will be possible for Charles Darnay to escape the jail. And luckily or unluckily, nothing happened, and Charles Darnay in an unconscious form was conveyed to Lucy, and he was there to reach there. Everything happened in the planned way. The kind of spies we may say, and the helpers of Sidney Carton, they helped him in order to complete the plan. And in that way, Charles Darnay was out and Sidney Carton was inside the jail chamber. And 1 hour time as it was left, that passed very quickly, and so Sidney Carton was brought to the sacrificing place or the killing place. And on the other hand, the story continues like that, where we can see that the uh, passengers, Lucy Maynard, Dr. Maynard, and Laurie, Mr. Laurie, and it is the unconscious Mr. Charles Darnay, who is appearing to be Sidney Carton. They are in they are in the carriage. They are going very fastly. They are looking back also whether they are being followed or not. All these things are happening as they would wish. So in that way, the journey is continuing village after village, or we can say city after city, town after town on the rough road. They are being pulled by the horse wagon, and the horse wagon is conveying them. Ultimately, the horse wagon had to stop at certain place in order to change the horses, but the horses were also changed in a very successful way. And ultimately, these people were able to reach the frontiers of France and entered into England. And as a result, Charles Darnay was quite safe. Now, this chapter 14 is named as the knitting done. The importance of the word knitting done is being taken here, and we must understand that knitting is the hobby, is the kind of activity of Mrs. Defarge, and she continued to knit with the help of knitting needles. And ultimately, when she completed her knitting, and at that time it was an indication that somebody is going to put to death at her orders, because that was the style. So that is why the chapter has been named as knitting done. But interestingly, this type of knitting this time is not that knitting. It is the kind of cheat which has happened, and that cheat actually means that it will not be Charles Darnay who is going to be put to death, but also it is Sidney Carton. So the real purpose of Mrs. Defarge was partially or partly served, not 100%, that she was killing some rich person, but it was not Charles Darnay. And that is why, in order to make it sure that all the family of Charles Darnay dies or is killed, she tries to run behind, she tries to find out Lucy Maynard also in order to kill her. And that interesting part of the story is still there. Let us see how all this happens, and let us continue to find out more things about this knitting done. For example, here this paragraph goes to show that this is the intention of Madame Defarge, that she will be trying to catch the remaining family members of Charles Darnay and put them to vengeance as well. So in that way, she decides to go to the house of Lucy Manet where they are staying, and she tries to go there on foot. And the writer takes special care that she's walking on foot. She's not wearing any shoes, and she is not wearing even the leg dress also. She was strong, she was beautiful, she was determined, she was powerful woman. All these qualities have been highlighted in this paragraph. So if the readers read this paragraph, they can find that how she has been portrayed. For example, she was in the second line, we find that she had very powerful body, that she was appearing to be a ruthless woman. Alongside that, she appeared to be strong and fearless. She had a shrewd sense and readiness, and she was able to make the decisions. She was able to do the things boldly, and that is why she was proceeding on foot and rapidly moving towards the place where she suspected that Lucy Manet is living. And definitely she wanted to kill her. She wanted to take full revenge of her side on the rich people. And here in the third last line, if you see where the cursor is also present, she has been named by the writer as the tigress. She was absolutely without pity. If she had ever had the virtue in her, it had quite gone out of her. So that is the introduction of Mrs. Defarge right now, who had become very powerful, who had become a single entity who could proceed forward and do anything she would like to do. So in that way, Mrs. Defarge is traveling towards the streets and towards the places where Lucy Manet possibly could be found. But Lucy Manet was there to go. She had already gone with Charles Darnay, so there was no chance actually. But it's Mrs. Pross whom Mrs. Defarge will be meeting. Madame Defarge is carrying, as we find in this paragraph, she was carrying a loaded pistol. She was carrying a sharpened dagger also, in order to use these weapons at any time under the robes she was carrying. So the writer is letting us know that it's a possibility that when she reaches and faces some other person other than Lucy Manet, she will be using her weapons also, the force of her weapon also, in order to get her purpose fulfilled. So in that way, she keeps on traveling, she keeps on going, and we also have the kind of feeling that we are reaching the place where a type of encounter would take place between Mrs. Pross and this Madame Defarge. That's what we are going to find, and very soon, definitely, we are on those spaces, reaching very soon there. For this purpose, we need to have a little wait, and that weight could be found in the shape of little paragraphs where Mrs. Pross is able to find that it was the possibility that Madame Defarge was standing before her and making inquiries that where the wife of Evermond was present there, and that wife is definitely Lucy Manet, for whom she has come there. But this is Mrs. Pross says that she will have to kill her first in order to reach there. So in that way, both of them are conveying their angry looks with each other. But the writer in this three lines color shows us that it was not possible for them to understand the words which they are speaking, because Mrs. Pross was speaking English language and Madame Defarge was speaking French language. Both were unintelligible to each other. Both were unable to understand the words of each other. But the body language, the anger which they reflected, that was quite dominant there. And that anger was conveying or communicating between the two. The language was not being understood. So if there's a language of love, there's a language of hate also, and both the ladies were understanding the language of hate of each other. And in that way, a dialogue continues to take place. But ultimately, Madame Defarge is held by Mrs. Pross, Miss Pross. She holds her just like the bear hug of the wrestlers. She takes her by the middle of her body and covers her with both of her hands. She's so strong that she is able to keep her in control, and in that way she pushes and pulls and then presses her in such a sharp way that Miss Pross becoming dominant on her, and Madame Defarge was unable to get rid of the grip of Miss Pross. So in order to use her pistol, Madame Defarge goes forward to and takes her hands towards the pistol where it was present, and as soon as the pistol was going to be drawn out, at that very time Miss Pross also applied her full force, and ultimately the pistol blew, but it blew into the body of Madame Defarge. It could not hit Miss Pross, and that is why Madame Defarge was killed then and there. And very beautifully, first of all, the water with which Miss Pross was washing her face, that intermingled with the bloody foot of Madame Defarge. But now the blood of Madame Defarge was mixing with the water, and in that way As in the beginning of the novel, we had the symbol of red wine with which blood was written, and that bloodshed continued to happen. But now the same blood has been covered by the water, and so in that way, the end of the story, the end of bloodshed that is coming up. And Miss Pross, in this way, kills Madame Defarge, or Madame Defarge is killed herself. Ultimately, she goes out and she tries to follow in a different coach with the help of her faithful companion, that she also reaches the shores of England in order to escape from the powerful, dominant, dreadful situation of the French people. Ultimately, chapter 5 is here, which is titled as The Footsteps Die Out Forever. It means the whole story is going to end. The kind of cruelties and oppression is going to end, and the government of France is going to be in the hands of the citizens or the common people, and the English people, they have reverted, and Charles Darnay has been saved, Sidney Carton has been put to death. So these things will be talked about in this chapter, as it is going to be the conclusive chapter of the whole novel. Sidney Carton is meeting a woman who has come forward in order to have the good words in the end of the story with him. So she says that she wants to walk with him. She says that she wants to kiss him. She says that she wants to remember all the things which are good in her life before the whole thing takes place. Both the people have this kind of chance, and ultimately, it is the vengeance, it is the kind of machine, it is the kind of death which is imposed upon both the people, and ultimately they die. So the story ends with the death of Sidney Carton, and the story ends with the successful departure, arrival of Lucy Maynard, Dr. Maynard, and that Charles Darnay, followed by Miss Pross into the shores of England, into the favorite places of England. So in that way, the story of the two cities and the death and the trouble which has taken place so much in the story, that has been highlighted, but the end of the story has been made beautiful, because ultimately it becomes a happy story, because Charles Darnay and Lucy Maynard, as the lovers, as the husband and wife, and their beautiful young daughter, they are able to meet, they are able to save their lives, and this is what goes to happen in the whole of the story. So this is not only the story of the bloodshed, this is not the story of revenge, it is also the story of love, or the examples, the very best examples of love set by the different characters like Sidney Carton in this novel, written by Charles Dickens. So here is the end of the story, and here's the end of the whole business we are about to make today. I would suggest that if you have understood anything, if you have enjoyed this whole speech made by me, I would request you people to come forward and to hit the subscribe button also, and give your comments in order to further improve the stories which I am recording. So this novel has been covered. For the benefit of the students of literature, I may inform that such videos will continue to take place, which are very helpful for them in order to understand their courses, in order to prepare for their examinations. This will keep on happening. So I am here to say goodbye to you people, till we meet once again in the some next coming video on a novel, or on poetry, or on drama. This is the whole thing that I wanted to say and tell you people. So that's it from me for this day. Hopefully seeing you once again in some next video. Thank you very much, and bye bye.